All right, it is 8:05. Why don't we begin? My name is Brian Verserio, and I am the president of the IDSA. I'm the Student Activities Director at Deerfield High School. Sally.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sally Phillip. I'm the Activities Director at Hinsdale Central High School and the IDSA President-elect. And welcome to Tuesday Night Topics. We're glad you guys are here.
Awesome. Yes, we are so excited to be here to talk about yearbooks. People have been kind of asking, what are people going to do about yearbooks? Lisa and Melissa have a great presentation, but it's also going to be about you all sharing as well, too. So Lisa, Melissa, why don't you introduce yourselves and take it away?
Good evening. I'm so glad that you're here, and I've got multiple screens going on. So if you see me look up, that's because I'm looking at all of your wonderful faces, but I'm trying to face the camera and see our notes at the same time. So my name is Lisa Friedrich, and I am the Activities Director at Highland Park High School. And we are so glad to be offering this yearbook opportunity to have an open discussion with those of you that are actually creating a yearbook this year or wondering, how am I creating a yearbook this year? And this all evolved around my role as an activity sponsor and wanting to support my two sponsors at Highland Park High School. Yearbook is a club activity at our school. And so how do we gather pictures? How do I do that? All with a brand new yearbook sponsor this year. So I wanted to take an extra role in supporting that. So lots of conversations about how do we do that? And then that just evolved into what we have here tonight, the opportunity to bring lots of people together who are working on the yearbook to share ideas and to gather ideas so that we all leave with something hopefully new that we can do and something that we feel good about what we're already doing. So welcome here, and I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime this evening, Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Crine. I'm the Director of Student Activities at Loyola Academy, and it's my third year doing that role, but before that, I was for 14 years the yearbook sponsor. I call them moderators at Loyola, so I'm probably going to switch up and call it that on accident. So I've got a long experience doing the yearbook, and so that's why I teamed up with Lisa, and we also have it as a club at our school. As we begin, if you could please put in the chat if you're here as a student activities director or as a sponsor, and then also if your school has been completely remote or some combination of hybrid, that'll give us a sense of what schools are here and what we're working with.
So go ahead and use that chat, please, so that we can see club or class and how that's all working for everyone who's here at the table. Oh, Victoria Soto High School. This is awesome. Oh, so many schools represented. That is amazing. Thank you so much. So we're going to use the chat again because the big question was, do you have portraits or do you not have portraits for this year? I see some heads nodding as I look up at the screen there. Oh my gosh, what do we do, right? And that's where our life was in the fall. And actually, Highland Park High School was able to do portraits and had multiple opportunities with the photographer company that we work with. And so we do have portraits this year and are able to work with them. But let's see who, I'm looking over here. We have portraits, second shoot. Some are just scheduling now, it looks like. Oh, that's great to see. So how do you work with portraits and how do you get kids in the yearbook is lots of different things. that we were talking about. I do want to say that Highland Park High School works with Justin's, and I know that they have a program where parents and students can upload a portrait themselves. I don't know if you're aware of that, but some people are building their yearbooks that way. We are building them with the people, our photographer photos. But the other way that we used portraits was Google Forms. So we would ask students to send in pictures of themselves doing their favorite thing, and I'll touch more on that in just a minute. But we use Google Forms for students, and then we know that they're from our students and can track who turned them in by their email.
And then the next slide, which I will wait to show later, we've shown some ways that you can still feature your students without having portraits of them. So we'll give some ideas there, and then also ask for feedback on what you're doing. And then another thing that is worth a conversation is if you do superlatives or quotes for your seniors. That seems to be a big debate at a lot of different schools. So if you use them, it'd be nice to know who does, or if you allow seniors to submit quotes, or any grade level for that matter. That's something else that often goes in the student portrait section. And then we at Loyola often do a lot of personality questions, is what we call them, or we feature just different questions, allows us to showcase answers from our students. So a little bit easier to showcase students, maybe you don't have them to get a photo in front of them to include in there. So it looks like there's some people that do superlatives and quotes and things.
So can we see a raise of hands who's doing superlatives or quotes? I won't put my hand up. So I'm looking. So we do have some. Yeah. I'm going to admit that Highland Park High School was in the news a couple of years ago for quotes, and an unfortunate quote, even after careful screening by multiple eyes, we did not catch one, and it was seen as offensive, and we had to deal with that, not only with our students but with our community, and have some healing at that point in time. So we have elected not to do quotes or superlatives anymore at this time. Kids keep asking, but I'm hoping after this year that tradition will feel less like a tradition and ownership of that. Anyone else want to share and unmute? Share an experience or thoughts, why they work for you?
Hi, my name is Monica Hendricks. I'm from Staunton High School in Staunton, Illinois.
I'm from Highland, Illinois originally. So
awesome.
Very close. Isn't that cool?
Yes. Yeah. So this is my first year taking on yearbook sponsor. I had one senior coming in as my yearbook staff. I now have a staff of 20 different students.
Amazing.
And Connor O'Brien has been fantastic with Justin's. And we are going to, I call this yearbook this year the fluff yearbook, because you don't really know what we're going to have in it. I am starting to be really close with our band instructor, and I'm trying to get some homemade, like the powder and glitter drum pictures. I've done a ton of practice pictures for football, basketball, volleyball, as far as I can right now. But other than that, I said, if anything, we'll at least have practice pictures.
Definitely. And those sound like student life pictures as well. And that's what we kind of did with Google Forms, like send in your first day of school picture, or send in your snowman picture, or different things like that. So the Google Forms, we did weekly questions, and I'm going to turn it over to Melissa because she really is the expert there in gathering that information, and really has some wonderful things to share. And hopefully you will be able to share some ideas too.
Yeah, so we often just use Google Forms to get the original information. but how we decide to feature them is if our availability of photos is there. And so the next, I think it's in 2 slides, has some of the layouts. So what I did was there we go. These are just some ways that we've in the past featured things in the yearbook where we didn't have photos of students or couldn't get them. So I've always found it really helpful just to look through other yearbooks as ways to steal ideas. So even if that exact question isn't something that you would use, but just that idea of how you could lay something out without using photos is helpful. Like the top one didn't need any photos because it was how well do you know them? Can you guess who it is? When we switched to iPads, we had a lot of iPad based questions. And now that they're all remote, there's probably a lot more digital things they're doing. We've done things with playlists. And so kind of making it look like a playlist from Spotify, or I feel like that's the most commonly used app that they would use. But then we did theme songs where we used a cover of the theme song and then why they would choose that. And then TV shows as well. And then on the next slide,
Melissa, can I stop you real quick?
Sure.
In the chat there, someone is asking, was there any copyright trouble with some of the images that you're using, or how
No.
did you run into any of that?
No, Herf Jones is really good about checking that. I would say the one place that you'll run into copyright image issues with any publisher is Disney. They are extremely possessive of all of their images. And so you can talk about it, but you can't use their images. But it does fall under like fair use for school, since we're not making a profit off of this. I would imagine most schools are just breaking even with their yearbooks. And so that's why we've never had really big copyright issues. And then on this page, we did wishes, we did yourself in a dictionary. So that makes it a lot easier. The one that has the book, that's just a basic image of a book. The Illinois license plates, we just found the blank one and filled in their license plates. Road signs, they like to ask questions for the sophomores of driving. And so those are road signs of where they would go. Items on their bucket list. My favorite part I did not put on there, but one of our students on his bucket list was to break a world record. So we actually had a photo of him breaking the world record in our gym. So that was kind of cool to be able to feature there. And then just like a movie reel of movie things. So there's a lot of ways if you are more concerned about copyrights. The majority of the ones on this page, don't have any images that you would need to be worried about. And then on the next slide, it's just more of the same. If you won the Powerball, what would you win? There's a calendar of making up your own holiday, things with music. We had the kids give us their emojis for the Snapchat map. Hello, my name is. So these are just some ways and that could help you find ways to include as many students as possible, especially ones who aren't on campus or you can't get pictures of. And then the last one that we've used in the past, we did something with names, and we looked at all of our students that had the most common names that year. Like 30 Marys in the school, 20 or 86 Jack and Johns. And we asked kids, what's it like having the same name as other people? We asked them what was like, when we asked a few kids that had, their very unique names, what that was like. And that was just a really fun way to acknowledge the fact that when you walk down the hallway, at least at our school, and you heard the word Grace, there's going to be several heads turning. So it's just a fun way to acknowledge what it's like in the halls at the school, or even on the Zoom. I'm sure there's more than one Grace on a lot of our Zooms, or Katie, Catherine, different things like that. So it's just a fun way. I mean, everyone has a name, so there's a lot you can do with that. And the last is one that I just found in a video that I was watching this summer. And it's just talking about one person and kind of identifying things about them. We've never done a lot of that at Loyola, where we focus on one student. I would imagine at smaller schools that might be easier to highlight several seniors or things like that. This one seemed to be very chemistry based. So that's why they've got the elements there. My science teacher slash sponsors here. So I want to make sure I call them the right names.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so just, I feel like sometimes seeing other schools and what they've done. It's just a really good way to jump off and find something different to do that you haven't always done. So before we move on to the next category, is there anybody that has something that's really worked well for them when we're thinking about student life or student portraits, or a big concern that they have that they want to hear other people's thoughts on?
This
It
is a
seems-
little off topic, Lisa, and there's a question that was sent to me about burnout from Google form and email requests, and how people might be addressing that, as especially at some of our, well, I guess it doesn't matter if you're a large school or small school. There's a lot of emails going out, a lot of Google forms, and et cetera, and how are people kind of dealing with that when trying to get this information, which is awesome. I love how you laid that out. So
one
any
of the
thoughts?
things that we experienced, that for the first 9 weeks, we did a Google form, take a picture with you and your dog. It was National Dog Day, your first day of school, your favorite place to study, your work area, all of those different ideas. And then they stopped. They kind of trickled as we went on through the school year, and probably I see some heads nodding. Some of the things that I then turned it the next quarter on parents and asked them to submit pictures of their children. Who doesn't like to brag about their own children and want them in the yearbook? So we did get some submissions, and I believe that we're using that for our section pages. I know we have my yearbook sponsors here somewhere. And so, but please, anyone deal with that issue, and what are you doing now?
We found more success from Instagram, kids that direct message that to our student activities Instagram, kind of meeting them on a platform that they like better. It also helps when I have students that post. They can tell if I post versus the student post. I don't know what it is about the way they post, but that tends to get better responses from students.
We were going to go to raffling off prizes so anyone who submitted was eligible to be put in a raffle for prizes. So our yearbook sponsor or our publisher has put up a couple free copies of the yearbook, which is nice. So maybe we'll have kids who consistently participate be eligible for that. It's hard though. It's really hard.
What's one idea in this? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Lisa. I was just going to say at Deerfield, I think one of the great things I think that we're lucky to have is it's a class and an extracurricular activity. So there's school day parts of it and after school. So I think like the great thing is they can give them jobs. So instead of the all out blast, like everybody submit your pictures, I know that they've assigned kids jobs. So you're taking each of the kids in the class have a certain number of clubs they have to contact. So they're personally contacting either the sponsor and or someone they know in the club. So that's an easier and better way than just shooting out to all my sponsors, hey. But what I did get to do was send a message to my sponsor saying, if you haven't been contacted by a yearbook staff member, please let Mike and Herb know, because they're the sponsors of the yearbook. Let them know because you should have heard from somebody by now.
And then Deanna, I saw your question about clubs. We'll probably address that when we get to the club section, but if not, please ask it again.
I was gonna say, so this is only my second year being a yearbook advisor. And we're doing a chronological book, which is not how our yearbook has ever been done before. So one of the things we decided to do was kind of have like a repeat of a few pages to show kind of like the changes over the year. So we're doing like a page on what classes like, and a page on students involved in community service in each season. And that so far, I mean, we're only 2 seasons in, but that so far has been kind of working because you can feature different groups each time. And the word seems to be out. So like I just got an email today with pictures from a club during a service project, because we're hybrid now. So some of the clubs are going to do service. So a lot of the pictures from fall from class, whereas when we were all online and now we're in person, so you can kind of see the transition. So I'm gonna put it at mild success so far, trying something new.
Yeah, your ladder is probably totally changed.
Oh my
Anybody
gosh,
else
it's
wanna
just a
s-
giant
I bet.
blank space.
Anyone else want to talk about their ladder and how they're reworking it this year to give us some ideas? We're practicing our wait time.
A lot of chronological books this year. That's interesting. Probably the easiest year to do that because everything's changing.
That's what I was just going to say. At Glenbard South, we went chronological, kind of a hybrid between chronological and our typical traditional sections like academics and organizations and student activities. So we're doing within each season those kinds of categories. So we added in a divider for each one of those categories based on the season and kind of color coded it to the season. So it's a little different.
I have a quick question. I apologize because I know you all are talking about a chronological yearbook. I'm just wondering, what does that consist of? This is my second year doing yearbook too. What does a chronological yearbook mean?
So basically, again, this is only my second year too. We have divided the yearbook traditionally we had like a section for people where the portraits went. That one will still stay. And then a section for sports and a section for clubs. Instead of doing that this year, although the portrait section will stay, we're having like fall with everything that happened in the fall. So first day of school, events, the sports that did happen in the fall. And then we cut fall off at Thanksgiving break, and then now we're into winter. So anything that's happening in winter, we had like an online play, we had a big holiday concert, that stuff's going in winter, and now sports, thank goodness, are starting again. Whew, when I wasn't sure if there's going to be any more sports, I was getting really nervous. So we're just kind of like putting things in as they're happening, which is very stressful, but so far it's going okay.
I'm sure it's stressful when you want to assign your page numbers and then something else you want to put in, and then it just kind of makes everything off again. How are everyone dealing with that? Is that causing anxiety, or is that you're just going with the flow? I see your faces. You're like, oh, I don't know.
So far, we've had a couple of layouts get trashed because they're not meeting, clubs aren't meeting, certain things aren't happening. And we're just trying to be really flexible and roll with that, and then scrounge around and look and see what is happening and then put that in place of it. So we've done a lot of replacement, and it's working out because new things are happening and they're happening differently. So we're definitely finding coverage at least.
So I think that's a great segue into our next slide. Melissa, you think that's good?
Yeah.
One of the things is that activities and athletics, phew, we are having seasons, right? And so really excited about that now that we know what's going to be happening. And so for someone like me who supports Yearbook by scheduling the photographer to come in, I will do that so that we can have pictures of contact days as well. So one of the things that you see on the screen right now is an actual page from the Highland Park High School yearbook for this year. And one of the things that we have been asking coaches and sponsors to do previously was take a group picture from your screen, or use Pic Collage, the app, and create a group picture. And then when my sponsors showed me this page, I'm like, oh, brainstorm. And so one of the things that we did differently in our activities department was this year, I created a master spreadsheet with every club name in it. And I had sponsors list ID number and student participants in it. And so at the end of this week, I will be taking that spreadsheet, sending it to our photographer, and they will be creating composites of our club pictures. And so just like you see for the varsity and freshmen, they will be doing that for each of our clubs. And it has the student name in it and their picture in there. And we're thrilled because the pictures that I received from sponsors, they were wonderful, but in a yearbook, they just don't cut it when you're looking at printing. So that is one of the things. Some of the pic collages that they sent were great though, because they were student created. So we'll look at reusing them some other place. But the screenshots have been really, really difficult to use. And so this is one thing that we are using. Now, our photographer, I see the questions pop up here, so I'm going to try to look over here. We use Stuart Rogers, but I think it's a question you could ask any photographer to use, and you'll have this slideshow and you can say, hey, look at this. When I see this, I think of composites, my 8th grade composite of all of us as graduates, right, in our hats. So that's kind of how I think about that when we do that. I'm trying to look at other chat here. So I see you talking about deadlines and when pages need to be submitted. I know that our yearbook company, Jostens, has been really flexible with that. I don't know about other yearbook companies, but I do know that they've been flexing. I can say that for our yearbook, we actually went from, we usually distribute in May, and our yearbook contained last spring's information. So this year it will actually be a full yearbook of a full year and not feature the graduates. So we will be sharing our yearbook in August instead of May, before students leave for the year. Any questions about activities and athletics and what we're doing? Other ideas to share about how you're collecting?
Lisa, there's a question here in the chat. Question if Stuart Rogers is using portraits. It's going so fast. Using the portrait photos to create club or group photos.
Yes, they are. So in that master, they have student IDs, last name and first name. So they're going to be pairing that up with student IDs and creating those composites. And that's because I have them all in a spreadsheet listed. So I'm hoping that it will go smoothly. So we're really excited about that option with them. Other questions
about different levels of photo? I think that could also just be an issue with schools. Like, we're not letting a lot of people at our sporting events, especially the indoor ones. And so I need to get clearance when I'm scheduling Stuart Rogers even to come to a varsity game. So I would encourage finding a student who's like a manager for the team or is going to be there anyway. You'll probably have better luck having access through a student than bringing in a professional photographer if you're looking at covering the lower level sports, because that's going to be really tricky, I think, especially as athletic departments navigate being inside and all those restrictions that they have to deal with. And then another way, if you're completely remote, if you have a couple kids that you want to do like a feature on, it might be nice to find somebody who could have somebody else in their house take a photo of them as they're presenting on Zoom. So rather than seeing my Zoom screen, if there was someone in my house that could take a picture of me while I'm presenting, that's just a very different way to show the other side of the Zoom as opposed to the screen. So that's just an idea to help, I think, cover clubs if you're completely remote. And then the next two slides, we just put a couple spread ideas. They're not ours. They're not from Loyola, but they're just ways that schools last year covered teams with very little access in the spring and got a bunch of quotes from different kids. The next one has even more. It's got, I think, almost the entire team of basketball who didn't end up having most of their or part of their season. So just another way to feature students, especially if they're right now, it doesn't look like anybody's lost a season, but we have no idea what might happen moving forward. So this is just another way to capture some memories from students and not worry about having a lot of photos. Or it's also another way to capture some things about clubs. If you can get one good small photo from a club, you could still feature, 20 kids talking about their club.
Melissa, I'm going to, before we go on to the next section in our slideshow, I think it's probably good for us to look at, if you haven't been checking the chat, there's lots of information in there about ladders and ideas. And even though you're not sharing them with your voice, you are sharing it in the chat. And so thank you very much I have people who are talking the difference between chronological and in sections, and sharing their woes of the latter changing daily. And there was one question, what is the difference, super new to yearbook, what is the difference between each type? I don't know what that question means, Emily.
We answered that one earlier.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just catching up.
There is a question there from Will Kane. Some teachers have said that students don't want to have their picture taken. I think he's referring about clubs. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think you mean probably, Will, are you asking if they're remote and you're taking pictures of the Zoom? I just have students turn off the camera. And then you or whoever's taking the photo of the Zoom, if you don't want to show a whole bunch of just names that are blank, there's an ability when you're showing your view to hide anybody whose picture is not showing or video is not showing. So then you would just showcase the students who want to be featured.
Kind of where I was going with that was, rather than have the club sponsors get pictures to us, just have them write some bullet points or write paragraphs instead, going against the past where we've just had pictures, the entire time and just pictures mostly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
One of the things that just popped into my brain, which I thought was really, really cool, was that we have a maker space in our school, and they worked with Lindsay, I'm going to use you here. It's kind of totally off, but they made this code that's their playlist. So a group of 3 students came in, they made this code that can be scanned that features a playlist. So something like that could be really a cool option. If a club has a playlist or a team has a playlist, you could put that code in the yearbook and share it with others. So different things like using QR codes, we've explored that for video pieces that were on YouTube and that students can have access to it later. So there's lots of different options there to fill spaces as well.
Do you host those YouTube channels forever, or are those kids' personal channels?
It's the school YouTube channel.
Okay.
To me, it lives on forever. No
Okay.
guarantees there. I don't know. All right. So any other questions about activities, athletics? Some really good ideas in there. Thank you for sharing.
Will lead us to academics then?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, academics, especially for those of you that are fully remote, is going to be really difficult this year. And honestly, when I look at our hybrid classrooms, every single room looks the same. You used to be able to walk into a room and see them in a round table or partnered up. And now every desk is 6 feet away from another desk and they're all facing forward and they all have masks on. So pretty uninteresting. And so a lot of that is going to be asking kids to go into spaces or to take pictures of their own class. We've done in the past, and I forgot to put a snapshot of this in there, where we ask a couple kids to do like a day in their life. And so we would ask them to just go through their whole day and take photos from their perspective, which is kind of nice. They usually turn in some really fun photos that you might not take otherwise. And then you hit all the different subjects because that student's going to take all of those classes. We usually try to make sure that we're asking kids to take different languages or are for us in different tracks. But it's a nice way to feature them without just being, here's English, here's math. Because it's going to be a lot harder this year, I think, to make academics interesting. It was always my least favorite section of the yearbook, even though acknowledging that it's the one that everybody has in common, like everybody goes to school. Here's a way that a different school did some focuses on classes, things that they're going to be doing. And then there's actually just, I think, a couple spreads that are like this. One is all about languages, but you can see there's a lot of information here that was gathered without a lot of photos. So that makes it easier when you're not having interesting classroom setups. And then there's one more or two more spreads if you want to keep showing those. So here's the one of foreign languages, some percentages, some numbers, just kind of ways that using different graphics can help make it more interesting. And then the last one is something we used in personalities, but I think could easily fit into academics, just featuring different kids' answers to some questions, or by the number of features. We use this for student life. It was for our fall play, but just some different ways that you might be able to adapt those into academics, knowing that that's going to be extra difficult this year. And then on the last slide, we do have some links. Two of them are from Herf Jones that I was given from our contact there, but just some different ways to think about covering this year. And I'm not sure what the last two are of, Lisa.
My dog was walking around. With the other two are actually from Jostens, and that one that is the first one, the Google Docs spreadsheet. If you go into that spreadsheet, and I can put that link in the chat right now so that you can see it. There's some, they put together a whole idea list about different kinds of features and questions you can actually ask students to include that in their yearbook. So there it is in the chat. We found it useful. Our Jostens rep shared it to share with you if you don't use Jostens. And then the YouTube video is about how they are doing things and inviting you in and selling their brand as well. So, this was shared with us at the beginning of the school year, and I believe it really helped us formulate some of our questions. So it really is about finding content for your yearbook. So I'm hoping that will help.
Are there any other questions or ideas people want to ask or share at this point?
I was just wondering how many schools have had to push their yearbook distribution dates based on just giving yourselves more time. I know last year printers were, I mean, our book was really delayed, but that was expected. But if anyone's purposely pushed their date, because we have a spring delivery or summer delivery, now we push it to fall.
From the chat, it looks like a lot of people are moving it to the fall. I'm hoping that we can bring back the class of 2021 for a special signing day, and mitigations are a little bit looser, that we can have bigger groups come together. I don't know about the socially distanced thing, but maybe if we host it outside and we have across the table kind of thing, maybe we can have a signing for them. And then we'll look at sharing the rest of the yearbooks when the school year starts, perhaps, or having signing parties as well.
We moved to a fall delivery book 6 years ago. I will say it's really nice to have the whole year in one piece. And then we're with Herf Jones, like I said, and they will, I mean, for a fee, but they'll bulk rate mail out all of our yearbooks to our seniors. We just give them a list of the addresses, so I don't have to worry about pickup. I get all of those delivered right to their houses. So we only have to then the next year deliver them to the students that are back in the building. So that's something worth asking your company, if you're not with Herf Jones, if they'll do for you. And because they mail them out at a book rate, it is less expensive than if you mailed them out yourself.
Melissa, doesn't Loyola do something also around Thanksgiving with the recent graduated class with yearbooks? And
we tried that one year because somebody thought it would go over really well, and then that person was like, here, plan this, it'll be great. And it was not that successful. That's always happens, I'm sure, to all of you, that you're the one, they give you the great idea and you have to execute it. I would wonder though now with these kids if they would be more likely to come back, since it was such a weird year. It might be the time to capitalize on an event like that maybe they wouldn't have come back for in the past.
One of the things here in the chat was, is anyone looking at digital formats for their yearbook? Do we have anyone exploring that or use a portion of that?
Herf Jones put something together for us. I'm not sure if that's what she's speaking of or not, but just there as an app, our regular book was then available. I'm not sure if they've gotten away from it or if it's still available, but you can just have the entire book on your phone. Also, one more thing with that last discussion, I work with Ashley Malik, who just asked about that. We learned something because we had our delivery in August. It worked really well. We had one day when the seniors, or the graduates, I guess I should say, came through, picked up their books. But if anybody does that, I would make sure that you schedule it before the bulk of the seniors leave for college, because there were several that we just missed. So their moms or dads or brothers or sisters had to come through and pick up their books for them. But it worked really well to have that drive through and just have them pick it up.
So one of the things that we ran into last year was, I want a yearbook and I didn't order one. And so we have a wait list, you know, there's some extras printed, and we do that. Are there any ideas on what you do if you ordered all your yearbooks and then you have people who still want one, or do you order enough to sell them afterwards? I'd like to see anyone share or put it in the chat. Okay. Somebody orders 100 plus. Awesome.
I find the whole thing interesting about you guys waiting to the fall and the former seniors coming back to get them. I mean, I could hardly get my seniors after the 2020 to come get them. I mean, they were kind of like, I mean, it was like, I mean, they bought them, so I didn't lose money, but I got, anybody who wants a Deerfield High School 2020 yearbook to wallpaper their home with, I got you covered.
And for us, when Deerfield and Highland Park are in the same district, I only have 2 boxes of yearbooks left. Usually there are 7 or 8. And unbelievably so that almost everyone was picked up. We just have a few who did not. So amazing this year that we were able to get them all out.
We can't even get the kids that are in school to pick them up because we're at a private school, so it's in their tuition, so everybody gets one. And you tell a kid, like, you bought a yearbook. They're like, nah, I don't think I did. And you're like, no, you did. Take it home. So I did have 3 kids that came and picked it up today because their mom told them they had to, or they couldn't come home. So I don't know. We hold them for a really long time, Lisa, longer than we should.
Great things in the chat. Continue. Thank you. All right. Well, it is 8:48, and if there's nothing else pressing, I do want to say thank you and for being here. You're a quiet bunch, but I love that, and you've got great smiles, so it's great to see you. But we really do appreciate you coming to the table to share and to gather. So I appreciate that.
To bring attention, Will was asking if someone was with a smaller publisher outside of the bigger ones, just if anyone is and could give him some perspective on that, that would be great. Even if you guys connect later.
I put this in the chat. I'm at Victoria Soto High School. We're with a company called Zuno. There's not, much to say, but if you have any specific questions, feel free. I can put my email in the chat if you have any questions, or you can ask me now.
I'd rather email you about this. I have I have kind of like a laundry list of questions. So.
Okay, cool. I put my email in the chat, so mkillinger@saraschools.org.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Awesome.
That is awesome. Put your name in, or put your email in the chat. So if you have questions or you want us to contact someone, can you spell that company? What did you say the name was that company? Zuno?
Zuno. I'll put it in the chat. Zuno.
I'm like, how do you spell that?
To be honest, I'm not super impressed with them. I would love to switch to a different company, but obviously, yeah, that's not up to me. So, but any questions you have, I can definitely answer about Zuno.
Awesome. So there's questions popping up. Can we get a copy of the slideshow? And the answer will be yes. It should be. Brian, can you help with that?
Yes. So the good news is after every TNT that we do, the very next day, Ted Gergen from Stevenson, our tech guru, who I was texting a little bit ago, he always puts up the presentation and this video. And for tomorrow, I was telling him how much chatter there was in the chat. He said, no problem, he will put that up as well. Uh-oh. Did I freeze? Can you hear me?
You're
I
good.
can hear you.
Oh, okay, good.
Can you
Maybe
put the site that, especially the yearbook moderators that might not know where to look? I don't actually know where to look, and I should. So that would be helpful.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
Yes.
Let me look it up here.
Thanks.
It's idsa-activities.org. And then we have a TNT tab right there. And that's where you register for all of our stuff too. So it's perfect.
Aren't there awards and scholarships and stuff up there somewhere?
Yes, that information is up there as well too. And wait, I was just going to say one more thing. What was I going to say?
Were you going to ask
Arjun,
everybody to join us in
Oh.
2 weeks for senior activity, prom, and graduation?
Sally, read my mind. Go.
Right there.
So February 16th, register senior celebrations. That's what we're going to be talking to. We're taking a break next week, but we're coming back February 16th. And then there will also be there's information going out about our convention. That is on our website as well too, and more information is coming about that for April. So we hope you will join us.
And I hope this is just the beginning of conversations among yearbook sponsors or moderators. I think sometimes you're out on your own in this little world of creativity, right? And so you'll have the chat and you'll have these emails in there so that you can contact each other and help each other out. I think that's a great piece. Perhaps next year we'll look at coming together again just to have an open forum so people can talk about now what. Maybe that'll be something that we can do, but we really do appreciate you being here.
Right. And just to piggyback off that, Lisa, because I think that was perfect. I just want to say, like, reading all this and seeing everything everyone's doing, you can kind of get caught up in the, am I doing enough? And let me tell you, this is why I have a title of president. I get to say that you're doing enough. Okay. Look at me. I'm looking right at you. You're doing enough. I promise. So don't get bogged down that, oh my gosh, all these schools are doing a ton of million things. You're doing enough. So it's hard. We're here to help each other. So if you need anything, don't ever hesitate to reach out.
And if more of you do want to put your email into the chat just to have that conversation, I saw a couple people add theirs in there. So feel free to do that before you leave as well.
And maybe tomorrow or within the week, I'll go through the chat and I'll put them all in one email and we'll send it out to everyone and then everyone will be connected forever. How's that?
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks for coming, guys.
We should have everyone's email right from registration.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
About that. Well, at least this way you'll know who the yearbook people are.
Yep.
Yeah. Stacy, we stop sharing your screen for a second because I'm mine it. Thank you.
Good job, you
Great
guys.
job,
Great.
Melissa. Thank you for all
Really
your
good job.
expertise. Really, you've got so much knowledge. Amazing.
14 years had to pay off somewhere.